MJ Morris enters the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net. So make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. So Maryland's MJ Morris has decided to enter the transfer portal for Maryland football, and he's decided to go ahead and leave. And this was very much expected. I feel like every single episode I was talking about the quarterback battle, I mentioned I thought that MJ Morris would more than likely be gone this offseason. Pretty much as soon as they named Billy Edwards the starter, I knew it wasn't – I'm not going to say it wasn't going to sit well with MJ Morris, but I had a pretty strong feeling with today's college football that MJ Morris wasn't going to last as a Maryland Terrapin. I didn't see why he would stay. I still think it's kind of weird how it kind of all went down, because I think he probably felt like he got a little bit of the shorthand of the stick. He probably thought, I'm coming in to be the starter. Mike Locksley probably said you can come in and compete, and he probably thought in his head he was probably going to come in to be the starter, and I thought he was going to come in and be the starter. But Billy Edwards was, I guess, just more ready than where MJ Morris was, and was just a better player at that point in time to start the season. And so we went with Billy Edwards, and Billy Edwards started playing pretty solid. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to put in MJ Morris early. I still argue that I thought we should have seen more, had more games from MJ Morris. But to be fair, when he was in there, he didn't look great at all. I just think at the end of the day, when we sum this thing up, the MJ Morris experience failed for the Maryland Terrapins. And I think Mike Locksley wanted him to be the starter. I think Mike Locksley probably gave him the edge, but I just don't think he was ready to go. I'm sure he wished he didn't waste a year of eligibility at Maryland, and I'm sure he wished it went a different way. And I'm thinking he probably thought I just wasted a year of my college career. And to be fair, he probably did. But I just think entering the portal was the right move for him. I thought for a second there, with Billy Edwards entering the portal, maybe MJ Morris decides to stay. And he has a year in the system, and he feels like he can win that battle over Malik Washington, the freshman. But he ended up leaving, and I still think that's the right move for him. I have no idea where he's going to go. I honestly think this year kind of messed him up in terms of what he can be in terms of at the college level, because he could have probably went somewhere else and played a good amount for Maryland, and it just didn't, or for somebody else, and was probably could have went somewhere else and be a starter. There were a lot of teams that wanted MJ Morris. He's pretty highly coveted out of the transfer portal, but now, of course, he's gone, and I just think he could have gone somewhere else. Like, I'm not saying he would have started at LSU, but I know LSU wanted him, and I know plenty of other schools probably reached out to him for him to become the starter. But I think when we sum it up, I just think he wasn't very good when he played, and it was pretty obvious when he was out there. It's pretty obvious why he shouldn't be the starter. But now we really have to talk about the future of this quarterback room, because now I think it's pretty obvious that I don't want to say it's obvious that Mike Locksley won't be able to bring in anybody else, but it looks more and more unlikely that another quarterback probably won't be added to Maryland's room. And so I think with the departure of MJ Morris, we can officially talk about this quarterback room heading into next year and what we have now. And you guys know my opinion on it. I spoke out about it. I'm not in love with this spot. I'm not in love with where we are in the our quarterback room, because a lot of people were like, why? Like, I don't get your point. I just don't think there's any experience at all. There's like no experience. There's no guys with game experience. And I don't love that going into the year. I know you have the freshman Malik Washington that we all feel amazing about, that we all think is a unique talent. But I still think retaining somebody like Billy Edwards, even though he didn't have the greatest season ever and ended pretty poorly and just didn't look the part at the last couple games, and after starting off really good, I still think bringing someone in like that in case in case Malik Washington isn't ready, I thought was going to be important. I even thought that maintaining MJ Morris, if that was something that we wanted to do, if that was something Mike Locksley was able to do, I didn't hate the idea of that, because I said, okay, MJ Morris, a year in Mike Locksley's system, he'll be a little bit more experienced. Maybe you can give Malik Washington a couple games or full season, a year, so that Malik Washington, when he's ready, can actually play. And maybe that wasn't the best situation for MJ Morris, but I thought that would be a good situation for Maryland. Even though MJ Morris didn't look amazing last year, and when he played against Penn State, he went 14 of 24, 3 interceptions, only 1 touchdown. Definitely didn't look awesome in that game. Against Iowa, played a ton, 12 of 23, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He threw too many interceptions, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year. And I know he played in like weird spots and everything, but I just don't think that losing another quarterback and losing the guys with the only game experience that we had, even Cameron Edge, at least he had some bowl experience. I know Cameron Edge announced like I think it was during the season, that he was going to leave. It's just we lost all 3 guys in our quarterback room next year, and I know Malik Washington's going to be good, and I have trust that Malik Washington's going to live up to what we think he can be. But I just believe at the end of the day that experience matters in college football, and having a guy that's ready to go, ready to play, even if he's not going to look amazing, I think could be something that is important. Now we look at the schedule next year, and Malik Washington, if he's going to be the starter, is going to be able to start really easy. And next year's schedule is definitely the year. Somebody mentioned it in the comments. Definitely the year to start a younger quarterback. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, because I'm not in love with the quarterback that we brought in, Justin Martin, just because he hasn't played. So I don't really have much frame of reference for really getting excited about him or wanting him to be a really good player, because he just hasn't played. So I don't know how to get up for Justin Martin, because he hasn't really done anything as a UCLA quarterback. And so we just bring in another kid that was talented out of college or high school, but hasn't played in college. So I don't love that, and I don't think that's the best situation for Maryland, but that's the situation that we're thrown into, and that's what we have to deal with. And I think that Malik Washington's going to end up being the starter, but I do think this is the year where it is a good year to start a younger quarterback. We don't play any of the elite teams. We don't get Penn State. We don't get Oregon. We don't get Ohio State. The best team we probably play is Michigan next year. And they'll probably be a lot better next year. They have a really good portal class. They're going to be better. They have the number 1 quarterback and all that stuff in the 2025 class. And Bryce Underwood, that looks like an absolute dog when you look at that kid. He looks the part for sure. Could have a freshman duel, Michigan against Maryland next year. But I think that next year's schedule is not a gauntlet. So it is a good year to start a young guy. But I just feel like, what if Malik Washington's not ready? We're still playing Big Ten opponents. I just don't want to ruin the kid's confidence. You don't want to mess him up. You don't want to ruin it. Really talented guy that you have. And I just think maybe the Justin Martin kid starts to start the season, but I really doubt it. I mean, he's played college football for a little bit now, for a couple of years. But I just see Malik Washington beating him out, and there being a lot of pressure to play Malik Washington and to play him right away. And I'm not sure how it's going to look. I don't know if the supporting cast are good enough. I just don't know overall what's going to happen with Malik starting. And with losing MJ Morris, that's more guaranteed. Just like when we lost Billy Edwards, it looked more and more. It keeps looking more and more like they're planning to go with Malik. Now, could Mike Locksley bring in another transfer quarterback in the next transfer cycle? Maybe, but there's not a ton of them out there anymore. A lot of those guys are gone, guys that actually would be decent players that you would feel okay about starting, not even good about, just feeling okay about starting. basically all those guys are gone. We'll see what ends up happening. I just think that MJ Morse entering the portal, it doesn't help Maryland because I feel like him being here could have gave us another guy that we could have just put in there to start. Even if we didn't feel great about him playing and everything, I still think that it's important to have a guy that can play, even if he didn't play good last year with 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. We got to remember Maryland's offensive line, horrible. Maryland's run game, terrible. And if you can't do those two things, you can't pass protect, you can't run block, you can't run the football, it's really hard to play high level quarterback, especially against a team like Penn State. So I don't think it's a fair judgment, but still the numbers are the numbers and what he did. I think he'd be better if he got a full season of starting, and he did show flashes. I remember his first touchdown pass against Penn State. We were like, whoa, we didn't see that with Billy Edwards. We didn't see those types of throws. I do think he can be a good player, but I just think that Malik Washington having to start right away is a bit scary with how our offensive line's been, with the brand new receiver room, basically. And I just think that it's going to be a little bit suspect with Roman Hemi being gone. There's a lot of different components. A lot of guys are gone now. So I just think it's not the best situation ever. Obviously, nothing's perfect. At the end of the day, he's still a 4-star quarterback, so you hope he can work it out, but still. I still think it's something to be a little bit scared of overall. Maryland basketball had a letdown win, if that's a thing nowadays. We'll talk about that next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely what happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money has made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has served a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goal feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Rocketmoney.com/locked on. So Maryland basketball had an absolute letdown win against Maryland Eastern Shore, and they did not look like they wanted to be out there, to be honest. But I do think there was some important takeaways with their last out of conference game. So Maryland, it was just a weird game. I don't want to put too much stock into it, but Maryland didn't look awesome. That's for sure. But I'm definitely not putting too much stock in it. I know some people, well, we only won by 15 points. I think we were favored by like 30 or 40. I just think at the end of the day, they're tired of playing this week out of conference schedule. They look bored. Kevin Willard said he gave the guys like 4 days off. And I'm a college athlete. 4 days off in season is a lot. That's a lot of days to get off. Like getting more than one is usually a lot. I don't know how they were managed to get 4 days off, but maybe it'll benefit them this week with their huge road trip, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But I do think I'm not going to freak out. Kevin Willard said, like I said, 4 days off. That's a lot of time to have off and to come back and play this game. I know they were favored by like 40 points. We ended up winning by 15. It's just like it's hard to get up for all these games against Maryland Eastern Shore, against Bucknell, against Alcorn State. Like Maryland's tired of playing these teams. They just are. But I do think this game was interesting, and I do think some things came out. One thing's looked really good. Julian Reese looked like our best player on the court, which I thought was really good for us because the better he plays, the better we're going to be. But he looked like the best player on the court. On I guess that was Saturday that they played. looked like the best player in the court on Saturday. 31 minutes, was second on our team in minutes, 8 of 12 from the field, 23 points for Julian Reese. And they just couldn't guard him down low. And I'm going to continue to see this from Julian Reese. He's a guy that if he gets going, if he plays the right way, if he gets the ball at a certain point in the paint, it's really tough to stop him. And he can be a really consistent scoring option for us. Obviously, in the pick and roll game with Jacoby Gillespie and Rodney Rice and Miguel and whoever else does that stuff and all those different things. But he can just single-handedly, we can just drop it down low to him in the post and he can score. And we saw that a little bit when he would get down low. He would get to his left hand. Everyone knows he wants his left hand, but he still was able to get to it and was able to score down low. To be fair, it is against Maryland Eastern Shore, so that's one of the biggest advantages that a team like Maryland's going to have is their big men are just going to be bigger, stronger, more athletic. It's going to be really hard for a team like that to stop, but we've seen Julian Reese do this against all teams. And this year, I feel like we don't need it as much. I think last year we really needed it, and he didn't always deliver it. I think this year we don't need it as much all the time, but there are spots when the guard play, maybe we're not shooting well, whatever the case is, and we're just going to need Julian Reese to get us a bucket down low. And sometimes that's just what you need. And I think that's what he can deliver for Maryland's basketball. And so sometimes that's just what happens and what you need for your team. And I think he's going to be able to do that this year. 23 points, 2 blocks, 11 rebounds. So another double-double for the kid. 7 and 12 from the free throw line. You would like to see him get that up a little bit, but I'm not going to freak out. He's definitely not the best free throw shooter ever, but 23 points and 11 rebounds speaks for itself. And then Jacoby Gillespie, I think him coming on as a passer has been really important. Over the last couple of games, I think he's gotten 20 assists the last 2 games, which is pretty big time because he hasn't been scoring the ball a ton in the last 2 games, but he's been a true point guard, which is what we need from a kid like Gillespie because we need somebody. We got a lot of more talent this year. We have a lot more shooters around. We have a lot more guys that can do a little bit more. And I think watching Jacoby Gillespie, be that true point guard. We know he can score 20 points too, but him dropping 9 assists is something that does matter. Also having 2 steals. Rodney Rice, I think a little bit has slowed down in the slump a little bit. He's still a really good shooter, and we all know that. He went 1 of 3 from the 3-point line, 2 of 8 from the field. He just missed a couple of mid-range shots that he makes a lot of the time. I'm not going to freak out because we know he's a good shooter. Only 5 points for him. But we know he's a good player, so I'm not really too worried about that overall. But we do want to see him get going again, and it's going to be important for a road trip for him to get going a little bit. And then one thing, Derek Queen had a weird game. The first half and the first 2/3 of the game, I was like, Queen is, I don't know how to explain it, but he wasn't playing well, basically, and I thought he could have played better. And then he started turning it on at the end and started doing some good things. I mean, I thought he didn't have his best game, and he still ended with 18 points, 14 rebounds. So that's when you know a kid's talented. When he's not playing super well, it feels like he could be better. He still has 18 and 11, or 18 and 14. But my thing was, I thought he was just being lazy with the ball a little bit. Like, you throw a full court pass, that was a terrible pass, and we just can't have that going into Big Ten play. And to me, he turned over the ball 6 times. That's just way too many times. And I praise Derek Queen. He's our best player, to be honest, and he's going to probably be a one and done and all these different stuff. And he's going to make a lot of money playing basketball, but he just can't have 6 turnovers. Nobody else had more than 2, so 6 turnovers was way too many. Because I think Maryland would have been a good spot in terms of the turnovers if he had limited his to like 1 or 2. 6 is just way too many. Overall, Maryland had 12. You can't have half of our turnovers as a power forward. You just can't, or as a big man. As a guard, like, even so, you don't want you guys to have that many turnovers, but it's more explainable. As a 4 or 5, you can't have that many turnovers. So that's something that I really do want to see Queen fix a little bit and be better at, is turning over the ball, because I do think that that's something that he hasn't done awesome here at Maryland, but he's done basically everything else awesome. But at the end of the day, I think Maryland was tired. Jordan Geronimo played well off the bench with 9 points as well. Deshaun Harris-Smith hit a three, which I thought was big for his confidence. I just think we're tired, and I think we're ready to play somebody else. But I feel really good about this Terps team leaving the out-of-conference schedule and going into Big Ten play. I'll explain that next. I feel good about this team headed into Big Ten play. It's time for the real. And I think Maryland's ready to go. I feel good about this team. I feel good about where we're at. I feel good overall about this Maryland team. I think we're in a much better spot than we were last year, and it's not even close. One, in terms of our resume, I think our resume is in a good spot. Right now, we're ranked about 26th, 27th. We're like somewhere around there, which is right outside the top 25. We're basically a top 25 team. And after these potential next two games, we could definitely be a top 25 team against Washington, and then against Oregon, and then Maryland plays UCLA. So it's three games that are really important. That if we go 2-1, I think we're a top 25 team, and I think that's the goal. They're going to say they want to go 3-0, and they definitely could, but I think going 2-1, I think is the best way to go about it, and I think would put us in a really good position. But I feel really good. One thing is we just are balanced this year. We're so much more balanced this year. I feel a lot better about us winning on the road and us winning games because I just don't know. Last year, it was only one player that I felt like could get us 20 points. This year, we legitimately, everybody in our starting lineup can go off. Rodney Rice can go for 25 one game. Julian Reese can go for 20 and 10 one game. Derek Queen can go for 30. Gillespie can go for 20 and 10 assists. Like Miguel, we've seen go for 24 and shoot the ball really well. Anyone can go off. And when you have a team like that and a balanced team like that, where we have three guys in the starting line that can really shoot the ball, as well as two big men that are two of the best, maybe the best front court in the whole country, you feel really good about us winning games in the Big Ten. And I mean, I don't feel awesome about our bench, but I feel like it's good enough where our starting lineup is super talented. And I feel really good about this team. But you go on this road trip against Washington, and then you have number 9, Oregon, two really big games. The Washington game, we get a little bit of that time zone over there. We play the games at 9:30 on a Thursday, January 2nd. I mean, I don't have much to do, so I'll be watching it, but I know some of the people, working people, probably that's not awesome. But then you get Oregon on Sunday at 4 p.m. So two really good games back to back that Maryland has that are going to be really interesting. But I just feel really good about this team. I think that we've proven overall that we're a team to be reckoned with in the Big Ten. We're basically a top 25 team, and I think we might be, depending on how we play these. If we go 2-0 this week, you're a top 20 team. It might be a top 15 team. We'll see. I just feel really good about it. I think a lot of people question all the transfers that Kevin Willard brought in, but he got it right. And we have to give him credit for that. Even guys off the bench like Tafari Gapari, and some of the depth pieces that we have on the bench. Gapari, Jay Young, some of those guys. And then of course three of our guards, Miguel, Gillespie, Rodney on the starting lineup. I feel good about them. They've all shown that they can be really good players. I just hope in Big Ten play that we have games where everybody's on at the same time, or 90% of the team is on at the same time. I think we've started to get into this little pattern over the last couple of games, and it doesn't really matter because the opponents we're playing, but we've gotten into this thing where we've gotten stale, and it's like one or two guys are on. Like last game, Julian Reese was on, but Rodney Rice and Celta Miguel aren't efficient and don't shoot the ball well. Or it's like Miguel's on, but Rice isn't shooting. Like, it's like I want to get all 5 guys on or 6 guys on at the same time. Maybe one guy's going to have an off night because that's just what basketball is. But I want to see everybody kind of do their job and do what they're supposed to do. I think that's the one thing that concerns me, but we have the talent to be good. And last year, I didn't feel that way. I felt like the team was way too freshman dependent. And I felt like Kevin Willard built the roster poorly. And I don't know if that was even on him. I just think that part of it was just, we just didn't have the right guys in place. But I think this year we have a lot of the right players. We have a lot of talent. And I think Maryland is in the right position to do anything going into Big Ten play. And I think the sky's the limit. I think winning the Big Ten is absolutely a possibility. We'll see exactly what happens, but I do think there's an opportunity for that. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.